We're back at it, Monty.
Happy
How you grooving?
Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Another edition of Get Found.
And be seen.
That's right. That's right. And it's a Monday, ready to start the week right.
The Reek White.
The
I
week
love
right.
mixing up my
Week
letters.
right.
That's so much fun.
Alphabet soup. I had fun saying it like that, though. It's pretty cool.
I used to do that with my kids all the time.
Oh,
In
yeah?
fact, it got to the point where I just started doing it like naturally. Wait a minute. Like talking to other people. Whoops. It's all good though.
It's all good. I'll go back and do my drills. I have a group of drills. I have a bunch of drills that I do even when I'm speaking, singing, speaking. It's just really helpful to get the speech or the presentation going.
It's like doing stretches for a race.
It's like doing stretches. Yeah, calisthenics, stretches, jumping jacks for the mouth.
For the
Or
mouth.
as the vocalists say,
Yeah, I was
the
going to
mask.
say for the
The mask. That's what we call it.
right on.
So today, the camera trap, the impact of not being fully present, Monty. Glad we're talking about this. Because it is important when we are on camera, whether if we're taking a walk and we're speaking, whether we're in our place, our studio, wherever we record at, and we want to deliver something that's valuable for people, that's going to give people a result.
If you're one-on-one talking to somebody,
right.
they're
Absolutely.
the camera in that circumstance.
Exactly. So that's a great thing. So Monty, have you ever been on a Zoom or some kind of live event or on camera event, which is a live, where this is a live here, and someone was speaking to you like they're speaking downwards to you, or if you really looked up, you could see their nostrils, and you felt like this while they're talking to you. Has that ever happened to you?
Well, I didn't feel so much like they were talking down at me, but I did have the up the nostril view, which is distracting. So what she was telling me was not sinking in as much as it would have because I was distracted by her nostril hairs.
Right. Yeah, that's that I like that.
And there's it's also in that same scenario as what else you were pointing at or hinting to is speaking into the camera. So not only it was I looking at this type of thing, but she's like just talking, and I was like, I'm right here.
Right.
Hello,
Right.
I'm a real person.
Right. Yeah. No, it's interesting because I'm the type of person when I have a conversation, I like to look. I'm searching for my words, so I'm looking around. It's like grabbing words from the sky, not just random words, but it's my process of thinking. So doing speaking on camera I really trained my mind to learn how to look into the camera and to see how important it was, because as I watched myself, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Sometimes it doesn't look like I'm not being confident, or it looks like I don't know what I'm saying. But if I look into the camera, you could feel it feels more endearing. And like one person said to me, like I mentioned before, he mentioned to me, when you speak to me, it seems like you're speaking to my soul when I look right into the camera. So I'm like, okay, let me work on that. So it's but it's common though. Like I've even seen like big time gurus, I was gonna say big wig, but big time gurus, speak like that. They're not speaking into the camera. They're looking all around, whether if they're excited or whatever. But it does make an impact when you can engage like that.
I like a balance
A
because I
balance.
think that potentially you get the opposite end of the spectrum where the person is rigid and they're just like nonstop staring at the camera, and well then there's the too close, but just the I okay, and here's how the thing goes, and then there's that other thing, and then and it's like, whoa dude, relax a little bit. There's the natural part. I think looking away from the camera, maybe not strategically but naturally. There's
Right.
times when, like when you're looking for a word and it's
Right.
natural. When you hey, there was this guy. Oh, he was that thing.
Right.
It's that I looked away for a moment because I needed to get that thought. But then when I had it, I'm back in delivering.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's having the it's funny, we talk about balance, and that's pretty consistent, which is great. But it is helpful to have a balance with it because it gives that natural expression. It's the basic it's pretty much your how we are as human beings, our natural state of being able to communicate like that. Looking at, thinking, it's the whole process. And that gives the whole human being experience.
Yeah, I'll just drop this in there then. It's really a solution. But I just have to point out that the teleprompter is huge in that field
Mm.
because it's hiding the camera. So if the camera itself is something that is the mental block, the
Yeah.
teleprompter, just for the fact that now I can look at the person I'm speaking to
Right.
rather than a camera.
Right.
So that's how I overcame speaking into the camera. I don't
Oh,
think about it. In fact,
yeah.
it would be interesting if I had to go to a studio and there was a camera there. It would be new. I would actually have to mentally prepare and mentally take steps to do that because right now I don't see a camera.
Yeah.
It's just Carl. I'm talking to Carl or talking
Yeah.
to whoever it is that's on the screen.
Right. Right. That's good. Yeah, I've never thought about it like that. The teleprompter can hide the camera. And I'm for that. Some people are against the teleprompters with the whole text thing, and I get it. That's a whole other conversation. But I am a fan of that, Monty. If that's something that's gonna get that whole roadblock out of your way, absolutely.
And let me
And
let me
I love that.
identify that
Yeah,
I'm not using the teleprompter. There's no words or text on my screen.
right,
I don't it's so when I say teleprompter,
right,
it's really just a screen with the camera behind it. That's all I
right.
wanted
Yeah. For you, yeah, that's great.
for
And that's
my situation. Right.
right, right.
And that was the looking into the camera type of a thing. I
Yeah.
didn't want to have to think about it. And that was the way that I was able to trick my mind into, well, I need to look at the person I'm talking to.
Hmm,
So we'll just put the camera behind that.
right. It's interesting because I think about the whole process of being a performer, which has to do with this. And you're not necessarily performing, but when I train people in this area or the arena of the arts, you do look at technical things and then you have to put it out. You have to shove it to the side. And so what I love about what you just said was because what I love about what you just said was great because you're given a hack to say, let me just get this out of the way. Whether if I'm consciously thinking about it or subconsciously thinking about it, it's not a thought anymore. Let's just do the thing. You know what I mean? So it reminds me of that. Just do the thing and don't get stuck in your head because if you do, you won't be able to be present. So good stuff. Yeah. I love that. I'm gonna use that, Monty. That's a powerful story.
Yeah, well, there it is. That's the story, a
Mhm.
real life true story. That was
Mhm.
my story and how
Mhm.
I moved along.
Yeah.
I had the webcam up on top of the screen for the longest time.
Yeah.
And what I was finding was that I'm looking at the screen at stuff, but then I'm wanting to have that connection. So I want to look into the camera, but now I'm not looking at the person. I'm looking at the camera. And it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's just not working for me because
Right.
part of the communication is not only my facial expressions, but the reading the person I'm talking to's facial expressions.
Right.
Well, that's a little bit, not when you're on camera, oftentimes there are no other people's facial expressions. And if you're presenting in a large format, you're potentially not going to have anyone else's image to put up in front of you.
Right.
So that it's what I'm saying is my story isn't going to help everybody, but the
Right.
concept is there. Hey, let me identify this thing that's holding me up, and how can I eliminate that thing rather than trying to change myself into somebody different.
Right. Yeah, you got to do what's going to work for you. And just to be, I'm curious, just for clarity too. And so with your teleprompter, you're not able to see the screen on it, are you? You have the screen above you. That's what you mentioned, right?
Well, what I was just describing was before
Yeah.
the teleprompter,
Yeah.
I just had a monitor with the
Yeah.
camera on top of it.
Yeah.
Now I just have the screen on my
Okay.
teleprompter. I
Okay.
guess that's what you're asking. Yes, I just
Yeah.
have the screen,
The
just
screen.
one of my screens. So now instead of 2 monitors, I have 3, and the third one has a camera behind it,
Ah,
and they
got
call it a teleprompter.
got it. And you can see me in that screen, right?
Yeah, I can drag whatever I want in there, so I just put you
That's
up onto
cool.
that screen, so that
Yeah.
way while we're chatting, or whoever it is that I'm chatting with,
Right.
and then I have that option if I want to have words in front of me to remind me. I can do
Right.
a number of different things to help me remember
Yeah.
what I want to say or where I'm at, stay focused. But
Right.
just having the person I'm talking to, that's the most beneficial thing. But
Yeah.
then let's move into, well, you're just presenting, there's nobody on the screen. That would be another story. Then maybe in that situation I would put your picture on the screen, or the
Mm.
person that or a person.
Yeah.
Or here's another great one, kind of off topic a little bit, but maybe I'd put the picture of my grandson, because I'd be
Right.
smiling the whole time.
Right.
So there's just different ways of handling
Yeah.
that same scenario.
And I think it does have to do with our topic because we're talking about being present and whatever you can use to help you to be present in your communication. So those are some great tools and tips. So love it. But yeah, I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of the teleprompter, and the specific one we're using is the Elgato one, which allows you to have the screen. Some teleprompters don't allow you to have that screen inside the teleprompter, but
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad this one does, because that's my main use.
right. Me too. Me too.
I just need it to be bigger. The little small screens, not ideal.
Yeah.
I understand though, because it's got to be on that arm, and you don't want it to be 90 pounds. But
Right.
sometimes I'm squinting to see what's on that little screen.
Right. So
But that's
that's
because it was ultimately designed to have the text on the screen. It's not really designed to be a screen like the main screen you look at.
right. But I'm sure enjoying it.
Yeah, it's a great tool. Well worth the investment.
Right. Well, so let's talk about the impact of not being fully present. I've had many experiences like that, and it's not a good feeling. You want to be able to get the value or you want to be able to communicate what you want to communicate to your audience and get specifically out what you need to get. I'm like tripping over words. I need to get more sleep.
Well,
um
that's happens when you get excited and passionate about
when
something.
you get excited, you start tripping.
Well,
That's
your
cool.
brain works faster than your mouth can talk. So,
That's true. That's true. So, you know, so it's not a good feeling though. It feels like you don't feel like you got what you needed to get out. And I know, a lot of people have the fear of getting into that situation. That's why they may not show up on camera. But, the consequences of disconnecting with your audience is not a fun experience. But,
well,
it's
and it also could just be a self-awareness. Perhaps it's not a I'm feeling terrible about this thing, but it's a I just never put enough thought into it, which was
mm,
my point of my story of saying, "Hey, I hadn't thought about it like that." But this lady that I'm talking to, I'm having these feelings.
yeah,
I'm not focused on the topic. I'm not really listening to what she's saying. So let me flip that around. I don't want the person I'm talking to have those feelings. I don't
right.
want the person I'm talking to be thinking about other things than what I'm talking about. I mean,
Right.
because nobody wants to be ignored,
Right.
and essentially maybe they're not intentionally ignoring you, but if they're not paying attention to you, and especially if they're not paying attention to you because you're not focused, then there's this, whose fault is it?
Right.
And then it gets complex and deep. So I just stepping back to the, hey, how am I feeling when someone is doing this? I want to make sure I don't do those things.
Right. Right. I agree 100%. And you want to give, you want that result. You want to give the people that result that you want to give them. I know for me, when I think about going on camera, I use the principles of coaching. I love to listen to people and hear what they're saying. And it's such an exchange where you build off of one another. And I look at that, even that principle, even if I'm being on a Zoom call with someone, if we're on a sales call, I just think the principle of just having the exchange is powerful. But it's easy to take it for granted, or like you mentioned, you could be distracted. You might have a lot going on, or if you didn't get the sleep that you needed to get.
Yep.
Things happen.
And then what can happen is you don't look as professional.
Right.
So there was my example. Here's this lady who was supposed to be, or is, a prestigious person in her field,
Yeah.
but I was not feeling that from her. I was feeling like she was, the regular old person that got out of their trailer and went down to Walmart,
Yeah.
in their pajamas.
Right.
Not saying that that's wrong, just saying that that isn't at the level of professionalism that
Right.
this business call was trying to achieve.
Yeah. That's a good point. You want to
And so
create that.
there's also being aware too. How professional is this business call supposed to be?
Yeah.
And then you can gauge, hey, well, it's not as professional as I'd like it to be.
Right.
Or, hey, this is pretty casual. We don't need to be super professional. Let's keep it
Right.
cool.
And that's a whole other conversation, because then you might get into the conversation of expectations, because sometimes you might get on casual, and then the next person might be expecting you to be professional, and we're all different people.
Yep.
So
Knowing your audience, knowing your
right.
topic, and being flexible, pivoting. Man, there's a lot of topics to talk about there.
A lot of topics within this topic.
But let's narrow that back down to just that being present.
Right.
And part of being present is looking into the camera or eye contact. So if it's not a camera situation, it's with another person.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned before, that's where it really gets creepy, when it's live. And I say again from experience, there was this one lady, and on one hand, that's comment that the person made to you was like, it's like you're speaking to my soul. That's cool. It looked like she was burning holes into my soul. She just was staring, and everything she said, she's just staring straight into my eyes. And it creeped me out.
Right.
Because it looked forced. It looked like she was intentionally staring into my eyes and not looking away. And I don't know, creeped me out.
Right.
It just really creeped me out.
I
So
can see
there's that
that too.
natural. You're
Yeah.
looking to make the point. Here's this really big point, but now I need to think about something. All right, now I need to make that point again.
Right. It reminds me, like even in the business world, I know for me, I experience, where you learn things like the power poses and the power stare and all these different things. And, sometimes even doing stuff like that, we might go from our training that we might have learned 15, 20 years ago, but it doesn't work. Things, and you know how it is, things change and how you show up, how you need to show up. So I thought about that when you mentioned that. And so striving to have that balance, like you mentioned, is definitely dead on. And then feeling it out, like we're exchanging right now. We're vibing off of each other. We're exchanging energy. You know, do you feel when I do certain things, if I stare, if I'm staring a hole in you, are you looking uncomfortable? Okay, well, maybe I might need to switch up, feel it out a little bit. That's okay. But it's that
Yeah, that's
self-awareness.
yeah, yeah. When you have the feedback,
Hmm,
that's wonderful. You know,
right,
so when you have a crowd, when you're in a Zoom, when you're face to face, those
right.
types of things, you get to have that feedback.
Yeah,
It's more difficult if you are just presenting and there's no type of feedback because it's just a camera. Either it's recording or it's streaming and you don't have a connection with the audience.
right,
I think that's the more challenging situation where you're going to get caught up in routines and where that okay I gotta focus on the camera. Well, then you don't have any feedback to tell you you're focusing too much.
yeah, yeah, right, right.
So it's just where discussing it and being aware and saying, hey, and I think it's super powerful to be aware of those situations that you felt those ways. So I
Yeah,
keep bringing up that lady that, she's on her iPad and for her it was convenient because it was in her lap.
yeah,
But there was that, she'd look down once in a while, but then it looked weird too because now she's hunched over looking. I don't know. It just I didn't have that professionalism type of feel.
right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. I can definitely relate. Can definitely relate. But I like that. It's that whole self-awareness journey is helpful. If you have that mindset of being self-aware, you're able to feel it out and you can train yourself on that. One thing I was going to say too, one thing I like to do, and this comes from being doing choreography in the entertainment world, watching myself, looking at myself in the mirror, looking at how I move. And it's the same thing when I'm on camera. I like, with even the teleprompter we have, you could kind of watch yourself as you're presenting and play with it. Play with how you show up. Play with how
That was something I was going to say earlier too about some people
you
don't want to see themselves.
yeah, they don't want to. And the truth of the matter is too, and even there's a leveling of anxiety that can happen. So, but you
Well,
could
there's that
try it.
balance too, because you could get caught up and distracted by
Yeah,
paying attention to yourself.
right,
So again, it's like, well, there's these tools and techniques that work for some people in certain situations, but that doesn't mean that
right.
it blankets across the board. So there's a little bit of testing out and seeing, but being
Yeah,
self-aware is the first step, knowing,
right,
okay, I'm
right.
not 100% satisfied with this situation.
Yeah,
I need to do something. And unfortunately, there's not if you're unsatisfied with the situation, then do this. There'll
right,
be plenty of people that tell you that, but
right,
there's a bunch of do thises that you could try out.
right. Watch out for this way, and this way or the highway. Watch out for that. There is a power in trying though. When you try and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it's interesting because I think about instruments. Of course, I got to bring in like instruments and stuff, right? Having a guitar and tuning it, or having keyboards and playing with the different keys. You don't know until you try it. You listen to the key and try it out. Or if you play a chord, the chord doesn't work, or it just doesn't work for you. That's totally fine. But to test it out and try it, like you mentioned, is there's a power in that as well. But the reality too, though, what's tricky about it, that's when you need a coach to help you out because to help push you, nudge you. But if it doesn't work for you and even for your mental health, because even that whole thing, I had a student one time looking in the mirror, was not even an option for her. And so I needed to respect that. I needed to not push her on that. But with that exchange, I was able to learn that about that whole situation. But just with her, I was able to learn her more. But I wouldn't have known until we got into the situation to try it out. And we were able to have that exchange and get that feedback. She was able to give it, I was able to receive it.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. I found that very helpful. So, yes, indeed, Monty. Is there anything else we're going to talk about?
Well, I think that the last points that we had, preset was when you make that mistake
Mm,
of not being fully present. Oftentimes, what happens is you are trying to fill in for the lack. There's a lack there,
mm-hmm.
and that could be filled in with oversharing,
Yeah.
where you keep trying to explain things because of this, or which
Right.
means that. Um,
Yeah.
and then if you're not present, you're not sure where you're at. So your pace might be too fast,
Right.
or you might be rambling. You might
Yeah.
be oversharing, and therefore that makes your pace slow down, and now you're losing connection with your audience.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're unsure of what you're saying, that's when the filler words come in, which for a lot of people are the ums, but there's plenty of other words that I've been noticing people use a lot.
Right.
And I notice I use certain words a lot too. So
Yeah.
it's, again, self-aware. I think the key is identifying something in someone else and then taking that information and trying to apply it to yourself. Earlier
Yeah.
today, I made this statement to someone, and this is just so powerful. It's one of those, well, duh, yeah, but when you're in the trenches, you can't see everything that's going on. You can't
Yeah.
see what's happening in the next trench or the next trench.
Right.
But the guy standing up on the hill has the perspective to see the whole thing. He can see where you're at, where you're wanting to be, where the obstacles are, what you are doing, and how it is working towards those obstacles or not. And that's why you made a good point about having the coach. And that's why, because you're stuck in everything. A
Yeah.
coach is outside, giving you a perspective you can't have by yourself.
Right. That's so true.
And so even if it's not a coach, if it's just a business partner or life partner or good friend or someone else in the industry,
Right.
it's just a different body and a different mind that can look at it from outside.
Yeah. Very helpful. That's so
And
true.
and how that ties together with being fully present is that you can't see what you can't see.
Yeah.
So if you can have someone else point it out, then you can be aware of it. Even if you can't see it, you can be aware of it.
Very true. That's part of the battle.
Part of the journey.
Part of the journey. I was thinking about G.I. Joe. Had to take you back to the 80s. Knowing's half the battle.
That's right.
Yes, indeed. So,
Time warp there, man. G.I. Joe.
yo, Joe. I wasn't, well, I will say this real quick. I wasn't into that cartoon, but it was a pretty cool cartoon. I appreciated it later on as I got older.
Yeah, it was not my go-to cartoon either. I was more about Thundercats.
Oh, Thundercats, yeah.
Uh, good stuff.
Good stuff, Monty. Well, yes. How can we keep it simple? This is, you know what? Oh, by the way, before I say that, we should do it like the keep it simple thing. This is a thought. Just we're saying it live. Do it kind of like a battle where it's like, what? How would you keep it simple? How would you keep it simple? We do that sometimes, though.
Well, that's yeah. I think the topic will also lend to that
Right.
scenario a little bit.
Right.
Um, I kind of summed it up a little bit about being present, being aware of being present. It's
Hmm.
self-awareness. I think that is the summary for making sure you're present is self-awareness.
Right.
What works for you in the situation that you're in? Yeah.
I love it. Self awareness, and I tack onto that take steps. Once you don't have to have it all figured out. But in that journey, take the steps, because you don't get the insight until you take the steps. You get some insight, and even discovering yourself and the self-awareness, that's part of it. You are taking steps. Don't get me wrong with that, but take the steps and take the action towards, once you figure something out or find information out, and once you discover something about you, go in that direction and explore. It's exploration. You're learning about yourself. This whole thing, when you're on camera and you're watching, whether you watch yourself or not, I do encourage to watch yourself and have fun with it, because it is a journey and you are exploring. And what you get from the other side of that is brilliance. You get to learn more about yourself, which is what Monty said, with
awareness.
That's right.
And if there's another really good point to point out before we go.
Mhm.
If you don't have someone to give you that feedback, you're not live, you don't have an audience right there in front of you, it's a
Right.
recorded thing or a streamed thing, that is the strategic time to watch yourself, because that will be your feedback.
Mhm.
If you don't want to watch yourself, and you're going to make yourself watch yourself, that would be the time when you don't have anyone else to give you the feedback.
Right.
And barring that, if you really can't get past that, and you're like, I can't watch myself, I don't like myself, I don't want to watch myself, ask someone else to do it.
Right. Right. And by the way, there are people, big time athletes, successful entrepreneurs, successful speakers, successful preachers, they don't like watching themselves. So that's okay. It's just something to consider along your journey. And I love what you
Usually,
said.
for me, it's not that I like to watch myself. I
Mm.
like the opportunity to improve myself.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
there's the distinctness that it's not that I enjoy watching myself. I actually don't. I could nitpick myself about how I speak and all
Yeah.
kinds of different little nuances, but it's me, it's natural, whatever. The point being, though, is that, is there anything that I've done that was distracting that I could omit? Is there anything that I ought to have done that would have given more impact? Those are the
Mm.
types of feedback things that I'm looking for when I'm watching myself again. It's just, where can I improve?
Right.
What did
Right.
I do right that I can do more of? And is there anything that I'd like to avoid?
Right.
I do it
Yeah.
in
No,
that order. That's important.
that's good.
Positive, what could I avoid?
Mm-hmm. I love that. Oh, you just gave me an idea, Monty. You gave me a module idea.
Awesome.
I love it. Well, that's it.
That was more than we thought.
That's more than we thought. Love it.
Sweet.
Yes, indeed. So, Monty, if someone wants to discover finding their ideal client and understanding more about themselves along that journey, where can they go?
They can visit montyarmstrong.com.
Yes,
And they'll
indeed.
find the ideal client map and all those types of things that it represents, which this week was Fabimro. Feature, benefit, meaning, result, outcome. Conversely, though, Carl, we were talking about being present in your presence. If someone is saying, I need that coach, I need that outside perspective to look at what I'm doing and help guide me into a better scenario, where could they go?
Yes, indeed. If you want to get on that journey, check out carlalene.com and /books. Some of the recent podcast episodes we talked about were from my book, Speak Confidently on Camera. You can check out that book there, and you could also look me up, and we can have a conversation.
That's where it starts.
That's where it starts. It's a journey.
Human connection.
Human connection. That's right. So, hey, everyone. Hey, y'all. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you soon.
Thanks for joining us.